Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Tane Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Shani Vishesha Shunyavadi Desha Taine. Welcome, our second part of the presentation Higher Dimensional Science. So, yesterday, what did we talk about? Anything that stands out in your memory, what is most memorable, what you remember? What was the essence or most important points? Any suggestion? He is always very quick. So, what's the essence?
I don't know what this is.
Well, let's get. You suggest to give some.
I remember that the nature of matter itself is to disintegrate.
So what does that mean? That doesn't mean that.
It means that there must be something higher than matter in order to have life.
Well, she said nothing is eternal. Well, actually matter is eternal. But what is not eternal are the material forms. You remember? Yeah, so then you have to say it. Because nothing is eternal is not the same. So anyway, yes, the basic idea is we see so many different forms. And we also see persons. And the question is, where is it coming from? So the materialistic theory is that there's just matter. Let's say like on a beach, you have all the sand. And then a child may come, or nowadays they have adults making all these incredible figures, right? They do this also. So there's a form suddenly. And quite elaborate, huh? I mean, you have to be an artist to make that. And if not a child, you make a little something, and for you it's a house or it's a castle or whatever. Normally it's a sand castle, right? We talk about. So, but somebody has made it. It's not that you can look at the sand and wait that suddenly it will just start to make form. So we have never seen something like that. But anyway, the materialistic argument is this: we have not seen it because it takes really a long, millions and billions of years, and then gradually it will come, some form will develop. Теория е, че всъщност ние не можем да видим такъв пример, тъй като отнема много голям период от време. But the main counter argument is this, that the nature of matter is not like that. It's not that it will evolve even gradually over millions of years. Контраргумент, че всъщност самото естество, природа на материята не е така, че тя с времето проявява различни форми. All our experience, 100%, there's no exception, is you have a nice form and over time it will become destroyed. Нашият опит на 100% показва, че каквато и форма да има, с времето тя се разпада. There's no exception, we know that. This includes our own body. Това включва даже и нашето тяло. So, in the course of the presentation, we also proposed that for
to take place, there is some intelligence behind it.
Вчера в презентацията също така споменахме, че за да се появи форма, трябва да има съзнание зад нея, за да може тя да бъде проявена.
Whenever we see something is like these sand figures are being done, some intelligent planning is behind it.
Всеки път, когато видим всяка форма, независимо каква е тя да е, също знаем, че зад нея стои интелигентност, съзнание.
And consciousness.
И съзнание.
So now this is the question mark. The question mark is, what is the nature of that, whatever it may be, entity, supreme entity, universal entity. We don't even talk about God. Yeah, we don't even speak about God or anything like that. Yeah. So it's just something. And the basic question will be, is it personal or impersonal? That is let's say, the great difference between the world views.
Този въпрос поставя основната разлика между различните мнения за света около нас.
Yeah, so we propose the personal world view.
Ние предлагаме личностния аспект на това същество, това съзнание.
And that simultaneously there is also an impersonal aspect.
И също така предлагаме, че заедно с това, с този личностен аспект има и такъв безличностен.
Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the source of this impersonal light, this Brahman effulgence.
Това се твърди в Бхагавад Гита, когато казва, че върховното живо същество казва, аз съм източникът на безличностния аспект.
So, impersonalists, on the other hand, they will say that the light is the ultimate truth.
Имперсоналистите на своя ред те биха казали, че светлината е просветлятел.
And then if there's something personal, it's just a temporary manifestation.
А личностният аспект е просто временно проявление на безличността.
So, they propose as the ultimate reality a non-dual, homogeneous spiritual energy.
Това, което те предлагат като крайна реалност е неделима висша степен на съзнание.
That's one group of philosophers.
Това е една група от философи.
Then there are others who even deny that.
Има друга група, които въобще отричат всичко.
They are called the voidists or shunyavadi. At the end, ultimate reality is nothing.
За тях крайната реалност е нищо. Те се наричат voidисти или шунявади.
Which is really a crazy philosophy.
Което доста научила философия.
But it's quite prominent. Buddhism is actually that. Nirvana.
Но е доста силна в момента. Будизма е част от тази философия.
And if we think about it, we talked about this whole presentation yesterday about materialism, or those who say that matter is the ultimate.
Вчера говорихме главно за материалист, тези, които признават и твърдят, че всичко е
those who believe in evolution or the Big Bang.
Тези, които вярват в еволюцията и големия взрив.
Yes. So if you think about it, this proposal that matter is the ultimate reality, it's also impersonalism.
И ако се замисля малко по-дълбоко, ще видим, че всъщност това твърдение, че материята е всичко, всъщност отново е персонализъм.
So we have then the gross materialists.
След това имаме грубите материалисти.
And then we have the impersonalists who talk about some energies, spiritual substance.
И след това имаме тези имперсоналисти, които говорят за по-висше измерение, субстанция.
And then nothing, although I have to put something, so we have some idea of nothing, because how can I put nothing? Maybe it could be just the white but then it's white, you know. So
whether you put
it's very difficult to think even of nothing. So essentially, all these ideas, whether it's materialism or impersonalism or voidism, it's all atheism. So they do not accept the existence of a supreme soul. And they also negate the existence of the individual soul. Yeah. Nevertheless, some will speak about God. They will say, we believe in God. So, here's one proposal of a person called Osho. Some of you may have heard about him. Formerly known as Bhagavan Rajneesh. Prominent in the 70s. Quite some time ago. So Osho, he said, God is existence. Sounds good. That's probably also true. Then we heard about Carl Sagan yesterday, the cosmologist. So he said, God is the universe. Then we have those who say, God is light. And of course, God is love. Everything is true. God is love, of course. But it's not just a concept. That's the difference. So, and of course, generally people say, we are all one, we are all God, so God is everything, and we are all everything, and so many ideas. So what they all have in common is they actually do not accept a supreme person or the individual person. So, if we look a little closer at the impersonalist philosophies, there are 4 views of schools. And it is important to understand these to some degree at least, so we do not fall into the trap, because sometimes it sounds very enticing, these concepts. So the first thesis is that a spiritual fragment of Brahman, I have to listen carefully, it's a little complicated. It becomes captured and becomes the soul. It transforms into the jiva. It's a Sanskrit term. So the analogy is that the sky is without limit until is it captured within a pot. So now you have this very interesting philosophy. We are all just like sky, but when we get into a pot, the body, then we think, or it seems that we are an individual entity. Yes. So, by nature, we are Brahman, we are limitless. And when this Brahman is covered, then it becomes the jiva. Yes. So the antithesis to this point is that Brahman is indivisible, it's non-dual, and it's unlimited. That's the essential philosophy. So then how can it be fragmented and filled up into different pots. Is that clear? It's contradictory. You understand that? No? The Mayavadi will say, that's cool, impersonalists, that there's only Brahman, nothing else. It's non-dual. Then to explain that we are here existing as supposedly individual souls, the explanation is that we are a fragment of Brahman. And like within a pot, like the air within the pot. Yeah, you break the pot, then the air in the pot merges with the air outside. That is self-realization. You become one. Therefore, you are the Supreme. And I'm the Supreme. He is the Supreme. And she is the Supreme. And we are all the Supreme. Sounds great. But it's not logical because they say it's a non-dual substance. So how can it be fragmented and then appear? Yes. So next idea is very similar. They will say that the jiva is a reflection of Brahman. It's not in pot, it's reflected on what they call maya, the illusion. When Brahman is reflected on maya, it appears as the individual jiva. So, what again is the antithesis to that idea? That Brahman is boundless and unlimited. So how can it be reflected on something mundane? The third idea. The jiva does not exist actually. It is an illusion. When the illusion is gone, then there's only the undifferentiated non-dual Brahman. So, what's the simple antithesis to that? Now you should be able to defeat that philosophy. Again, if Brahman is non-dual, where's Maya coming from? Where's the illusion coming from? So, because if there's only one existence, how can illusion be there? So, if somebody argues that the illusion is a separate entity, then there's no more monism or non-dualism. So it's a nonsense philosophy. Now there's a fourth impersonal view. And I remember in the hippie times, we liked that philosophy. And you may have heard that. That actually the jiva is the only reality. And everything else is a dream. Does that sound familiar? And you create everything in a dreamlike state. And when you wake up from the dream, you become self-realized. Everything is Brahman. So, again, what's the antithesis to that? Brahman is non-dual. It's non-different. How can all this dream come about? So it's all really not very logical philosophy. Now, we may not bother so much about these monist Advaita philosophers who are basically in India. But today we have people who present themselves as followers of the Bhakti tradition. And they will chant devotional songs and mantras. But actually, they are also impersonalists. We have quite a few nowadays. Everywhere. Yogis, avatars, so-called spiritual teachers. And, we have to distinguish who is who and what is what. For example, one of them said in an interview not long ago that in my opinion there isn't Bhakti Yoga or Jnana Yoga or any yoga. It's just a bunch of bull. He said that. Kirtan is from India. And it's very specifically chanting what is called the names of God or the sacred names, holy names. But the way I do it is a little different than traditional, because in the West most people don't believe in God. And they don't know what God is, neither do I. So the word God means nothing to me. I don't know what God is. So I see these names as being the names of our own true self, our deepest inner heart. So that, of course, is not true. Yeah. I mean, it's a misconception. The sounds of God's names are not equivalent to our own self. We are not God. We are tiny fragments of spirit. Yes, like sparks of a fire or the molecules of the sunshine. So we are not the whole. Like this idea of this impersonal philosophy that we are all the one. So then, similar to this impersonalist philosophy, there's another philosophy. That is, as we said, Voidism or Buddhism. And the difference, we mentioned it briefly, the impersonalists, they conceive of a substance, a spiritual energy called Brahman. So the Buddhists, they will even deny that. They say the ultimate reality is void. In Sanskrit it's called Shunya, Shunyavadi, nothingness. So zero. Some of their teaching, they propose the idea of non-self. They will say the concept of non-self is essential to the Buddhist path. Why get rid of the self? Because it's not really there. It's an illusion. So Now the question arises, what is that what we see as a person? Yeah, because obviously we think that each one of us is a person, right? Now their explanation is as follows. We are something like that. This is related to physics, to nano technology. Yeah. On the nano level, these are all different events, mental and physical events that occur and form a human pattern.
Okay.
You got it, huh? Yes. Materialistic scientists, it's basically they're all on the same page, you know. Because the materialistic scientists, they will also say, there's nothing like a person as we say, you know, an individual. It's just something that appears to be a person. Yes, and these things happen basically in the brain. So the Buddhists, they will go so far as to say, because this is all happening on the energy level, and the energy is constantly like in a dance, a cosmic dance. So it, you know, the person appears, then it dies, and then it appears in another way, and it dies, and we are constantly being reborn and dying on the nano level. So, if we ask, if there's no real self, okay, what happens at the time of death? Because Buddhism also accepts samsara and reincarnation. Now their example is the example of a flame. The flame is going from one candle to another. Now the question is this flame of the last candle here, is that the same as this one here, the first one? Or in other words, is the flame going from one candle to another? What will the Buddhists answer? You can probably guess. There's no real self. No. There's nothing like some eternal substance or something that will just go from one place to the next. They will say there may be some causal connection between one flame and the next. Try to capture the idea. This is an impulse of karmic energy. It's not the eternal soul. So now this karmic energy is transmitted to another form of existence and appears to be born. But what is perceived as the self, it's simply a pattern of quantum events. Pattern. That happen to dance together for some time.
движение.
Yeah. So, according to quantum physics, each object that we see, whatever it may be, it's only a pattern, relatively stable, depending on what it is, a pattern of energy events. And for some time it appears to have that stable form. Yes. Right. So then after some time the energies will separate. And the dancers will go in different directions. So where is the dance? So ultimately, it was nothing. Just only, yes, didn't really exist. It was just some dancing of the energy. Get the idea? The pattern that formed and you were seeing something, it's not real. We say something similar, but it's not exactly the same. So for them, the Buddhists, they say the self is just like that. It just for some time appears to be and then actually doesn't exist. So material scientists, they have a similar idea. You know, the neuroscientists, those who talk about the brain, they will say this idea of self, that I am whatever, a person. It's just happening here in the brain, that's all. They say the impression that we have of being a self it's produced by the neural circuitry, like the computer. Yes, when the brain stops, we die, the self disappears. Just like this computer. If we switch it off, then everything what we see now disappears. It just doesn't. So, therefore, the self doesn't exist independently from the brain. So all these ideas are not new. There's a saying by a 15th century mystic poet in India. So that means like more than 500, almost 600 years ago. So, which shows the similarity between this impersonal Advaita Buddhism and materialism. So he was a poet, so he said, you know, the heart is the self. Very beautiful, right? It is Atma, is void. Sounds very mystical. So anyway, the followers of these impersonal philosophies, they are described as the killers of the soul. Because they are denying their own true nature as eternal spiritual beings. From Krishna's teachings in Bhagavad Gita, we learn there is an individual soul, a spiritual entity, which is eternal, and it's eternally a part and parcel of the supreme entity. So, when the soul's consciousness becomes covered by these impersonal conceptions,
приема тези персонални,
then its true nature appears to be lost.
Изглежда, че нейната вечна реална природа е изчезна.
And they can enter for some time into the effulgence, and you just imagine that I am. That's all. I'm existing.
Има такива личности, които наистина много първо са преди тези твърдения и за тях в определен момент те наистина могат да разпръснат съзнанието си върху общото съзнание за много кратък период от време.
There's a place for everyone. So
Както все пак, има място за всеки.
You want to have impersonal existence? Why not? Go into the Brahman effulgence.
Ако някой иска да има къв вид съзнание,
and just
разпръснато няма проблем.
Just be.
Може да се осигури.
So what will happen to the Buddhists?
А какво ще стане с буддистите, които
they don't believe in that.
Те не вярват дори в Брахман, свързването с общото съзнание.
So they can enter into stone.
За тях се обясня, че те могат да навлязат в камън.
Practically extinguish their existence.
По този начин да затворят своето съществуване.
And you can remain there for a few million years.
И тия личности могат да останат в камъните доста дълго.
Like complete deep sleep.
Състояние, което се получава на много дълбок сън.
We know when we are in deep sleep, practically we are not conscious of our existence.
Сами знаем, ние опит, когато сме в дълбок сън, ние не усещаме себе си.
But fortunately we wake up.
За щастие в един момент се събуждаме.
So this is not our real nature. Even the sleep, it's a temporary state, but really life means to be active and conscious.
Това не е нашето естествено положение, тъй като живот означава действие. Дори когато спиме, ние това много кратък период от време, защото се събуждаме и отново сме действени.
We call it the true nature because the true nature of the universal entity is it's a person.
Наричаме тази важна концепция за вселенското висшето същество, че то е личност.
So it's the supreme person.
Върховна личност.
And we are, and it's the source of this impersonal around it. So that makes the whole idea, you can say, complete. Because the absolute, or the absolute truth, is simultaneously person and non-person. So that's very difficult to understand. Therefore it's called achintya, inconceivable. But there are some examples that can give us some idea to get some glimpse, some grasp of the concept. For example, if this is recorded as a video, after I finish, you can see the whole thing again. And maybe in 1 month or 1 year, and others can, who are on the other side of the world. But I'm not there. Oh yes. Am I there or am I not there? So I'm simultaneously, in one form I'm there as energy, but personally I'm not there. And what to speak, we have movies of actors who have already died. So when we see the movie, is that person there or not? We all agree, no, it's not there. But actually in one form it's there. Or even just the sound. If I record the sound, and one can later hear me speak, I'm there and I'm not there, simultaneously. So, we say matter is eternal and it's the energy of the supreme entity. Yes, that's true. But simultaneously, there is the person who is the origin. And, that's basically Vaishnava philosophy. Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhu, everything comes from me.
Лично казва, всичко идва от мен, излиза от мен.
And I'm present but I'm not there.
И аз присъствам навсякъде, но също време в своя личностен аспект аз не съм навсякъде.
So as we have seen yesterday, in this world, and we know that, there are so many different varieties of manifestations.
Както споменахме вчера, в този свят има много различни проявления.
And one of our arguments is, nothing can exist here if it's not in the origin.
Един от нашите аргументи беше, че нищо не може да съществува в момента, ако неговата структура, форма и действие не съществува в източника.
Which is another argument against impersonalism as the ultimate reality, because we do have personal experience. We are persons. Where does it come from if it's not in the origin? So therefore the origin has to be at least both personal and impersonal. Now, in order to experience pleasure, you have to have personal relationships. Just floating alone is very boring. I mean, imagine, you are alone in the desert. Nothing, nobody, not even a blade of grass, no bird, no human being, nothing around. How can you be happy? So, the point is that the absolute truth, if there's so much variety here, there's so much more variety on the spiritual platform.
Основният момент е, че ако има огромно разнообразие тук, това означава, че трябва да има много по-голямо огромно разнообразие в духовния.
And therefore we speak of a spiritual world.
И за това следващата тема, която ни отваряме, е духовният свят, духовната сфера на съзнанието.
This looks very similar to what we have here.
И така, тя изглежда много подобно на това, което има тук в момента.
There are trees and houses and people and
има дървета, къщи, хора.
Sky and the sun, so many things. So some psychologists will say, this is just a projection from the human platform. Yes, our longing to have some perfect world. Actually, it's the other way around. That's the reality, and what we have here, that's the projection.
И всъщност обаче е точно обратно. Това е реалността, духовната сфера на съзнание, реалността, това, което живеем и изпитваме в момента е илюзия.
Not that this is the reality and we are imagining something which actually is not true, some spiritual, so-called spiritual paradise.
Сме в реалността, а това, което представяме с духовна сфера на съзнание не е в източното.
As we pointed out, and I think we can understand, anything material is temporary. It will be destroyed in due course of time. The whole universe, well, they say it came from a big bang. So it may as well end in a big bang. And in the meantime, and we know that, we have so many big or important civilizations that are completely gone. Where's the Roman Empire? Or the Maya civilization in Mexico or South America? So there are so many that had been there for a few thousand years, and now there's some ruins left. The same thing will happen to this. We are so proud of our new technological age. If you look back in the next 5 or 10,000 years to 2017, what happened at that time? How much will there be left over from New York or we look from the future back to now. Will this building still be there? Very unlikely. So anything that we see in this world, we are so much convinced this is real. Because I can see it, I can touch it, I can smell it, I can taste it. But we are informed from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, no. Everything is just manifested for a short period of time and then it disappears. But there's another world that's spiritual and it's eternal, and there the things are not manifested and unmanifested in a cycle, like here, birth and death, or creation and destruction. So, how to approach that spiritual dimension? That's the question. And how to realize the reality of our own self, spiritual being, and the Supreme Self. And how to elevate the consciousness from this plane to the spiritual plane. That's the question. So for that there is a process. Bhakti Yoga, there's study, practice, realization, direct experience, all that. Yeah, it's a science. Like, well, it's not the science of this world. It's higher dimensional science. So, in this world, if we want to make an experiment, there are certain methods. And you have to meet certain conditions. Maybe temperature, the humidity even, so many other things. And if you do the experiment, you get a specific result. If there's one of the conditions is not right, then it may not come out. And depending on the type of experiment, some are very, very subtle, so you really have to be very careful everything is correct, otherwise it will not produce the right result. We've seen in laboratories, even people have a mask sometimes on and gloves and temperature cannot go up or down much because otherwise the whole thing will not work. So that's material. So what to speak of spiritual science? It's more subtle. So in the Bhakti science there are methods to demonstrate certain spiritual laws. And under specific conditions, these methods, they will produce specific results. So as we said, in the laboratory you have to meet that. And in Bhakti Yoga, the basic conditions are created by 4 regulative principles and chanting the holy name a fixed number. Yeah, these are very basic conditions in order to actually advance in the spiritual direction. And when we say 4 regulative principles, it means avoiding eating meat, fish or eggs.
Какво си има предвид 4 регулиращи принципа? Преди да не се приема, да не се ядат месо, яйца, риба.
Like here you have vegetarian diet.
Както тук, примерно.
And those who are interested in some more spiritual life, they know that this is important.
Лично си купуват по-духовен начин на живота и много добре знаят, че не трябва да има насилие в храната, която приема.
Now to really get the good result, it should also be offered to God. Then there are others like avoiding any substances that will alter the mental or physical condition of the body. And of course there are more gross ones like, let's say, heroin or crystal meth or something like that. But even the cup of coffee is not so good. And then we have to avoid illicit sexual relationships and gambling. So in itself these things are not really spiritual. They just create an environment and a mental state that is favorable for spiritual practice. And the practice, the basic practice is, as we do all the time, is chanting sacred mantras, specifically the Maha Mantra.
А основната практика е повтарянето на определен брой от мантри и специфично на Маха мантрата Хари Кришна.
So now, detailed conditions may involve the 10 offenses in the chanting, developing humility, tolerance.
Малко по-деталните и по-сложните условия съдържат в себе си избягването на 10 вида оскърбления и обиди и също така развитието на смирение.
Then we have instructions by great acharyas. They show the methods and conditions in fine detail.
След това имаме инструкции на учители, които са успешни по пътя на Бхакти йога и ние трябва да следваме техни примери, техните наставления.
Yes, the idea is love of God, which is not so easy as one may think.
И тъй като крайната цел на Бхакти е чиста любов към Бога, тя въобще не е чак толкова лесна за постигане. Постигането става чрез следването на условията и на наставленията на тези учители.
If we want to know about the science of Bhakti Yoga, Rupa Goswami was instructed and he wrote Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
По-специфично, Рупа Госвами, един от тези учители, е бил инструктиран от Шри Чайтания в Харяда, Индия. И пише книгата Бхакти Расамрита Синдху, която се счита за основната книга, описваща науката на Бхакти.
So he explains everything, from the very beginning stages to the highest stages of pure love.
Обяснява всеки един етап, от крайния до крайния.
Yeah. For example, he will also explain 6 things that are favorable and unfavorable in the execution.
Описва 6 неща, които са благоприятни и 6, които са неблагоприятни за постигането на този резултат.
Another one of the acharyas, he will describe the process of initiation, stage of surrender, and how one should live in the world.
Друго тези учители, Санатан Госвами, описва в своята книга Хари Бхакти Виласа процесът на посвещение, 6 стадия на отдаване.
So this higher dimension of the science comes from the higher dimension, from the Supreme.
Тази трансцендентална наука на Бхакти йога идва от трансценденталното върховно живосъщество.
It's not somebody's imagination.
Това не е измислица на някой.
And then it comes down from one of the teachers to the next.
Тази наука се предава от учител на ученик, от учител на ученик.
And not long ago, well now it's 50 years ago, our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, he brought it to us, to the West.
Преди около 50 години, Шрила Прабхупада докара това знание от Индия на Запад.
So he founded the International Society for Practicing Bhakti Yoga, Krishna Consciousness.
Основава международното общество за практикуване на Бхакти йога.
Because it's much easier if we are together with other practitioners.
Тъй като е далеч по-лесно, ако искаме да се научим на определено нещо, да сме с хора, които искат също.
And he translated many literatures which explain that science in English, and now we have it in most of the languages of the world.
И така, Шрила Прабхупада превежда много книги, свързани с науката на Бхакти, на йога, на английски, като след това неговите ученици ги превеждат на повече от 70 езика.
So if we want to know more details, no problem.
Така че ако искаме да разберем повече детайли относно тази наука, няма никакъв проблем.
If we can participate directly in the main process chanting, then also no problem.
Основният процес, основният етап за процес с заедно повтаряне на мантри.
So we invite you tonight. We'll continue some practices of chanting.
И така, тази вечер ние отново ще ви поканим тази практика.
And besides that, anytime you have some time, try it.
И освен това, през останалите дни живота, ако имате желание, може да опитате.
Because it's scientific, one will actually see a result pretty quickly.
Тъй като всички тези действия, тази духовна практика, тя дава резултат.
Okay, so that practically concludes our presentation. Any question or comment? Yes.
Вие представихте така едно виждане на различни философски концепции и аз съм съгласен с общия ход на аргументи.
You gave us different philosophical conceptions and I agree with what you said.
Има някаква неяснота по отношение на имперсоналист.
I have a certain insecurity about impersonalism.
Yes.
Според мен те са много различни. Има някои, които не по начин на живот, спазване на регулиращи принципи, дори в техниките им има нещо много общо. Тоест ми е трудно да допусна, че примерно те с това изработват следващ живот от минералното. Аз още повече, че съм чел, доколкото съм запознал с вишнанската литература, че те постигат все пак сливане с безличност.
Той вече обясни, че буддистите стават на...
Да, но принципно...
It's hard for him to believe that some of them go to live as stones. Because...
Not all of them, don't worry. I mean, we have... You know, it's a desire the living entity has.
And тяхното спазване на тези етични принципи, те докарват ли добра харма или благодарение на имперсонализма си тя също?
Okay, this is both following ethical principles on one hand, and on the other hand is impersonalism. So by following nice, good ethical principles, you get good karma, but by impersonalism you get life as a stone.
Well, as I said, desire is a very important factor.
Както вече казах, желанието е един от основните фактори.
As it is said, nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam eko bahunam yo vidathati kama. Amongst all the eternal living entities, there is one supreme. And he fulfills the desires of everyone. So he's very kind. He doesn't, if you want to, in time, you can get your desire fulfilled. So we are talking about real shunyavadis. Those who really have the desire to not exist. Try to understand. Why do they don't want to exist anymore? They understand that material existence is suffering. And they want to end all suffering. And they understand that the cause of suffering is the material body, the existence in the material body.
И по логичен път те разбират, че причината за материалното страдание е материалното тяло.
Now, because they don't have a conception of an eternal soul,
обаче, тъй като те нямат концепцията, не приемат концепцията за вечна душа,
that has nothing to do with the body.
която няма нищо общо с тялото.
Their idea of not continuing this suffering condition
тяхната идея за спиране на страданията
is to dismantle the subtle body and the gross body.
е да се разбие, да се унищожи финното и грубо тяло.
It's like purposely disintegrating.
Все едно съзнателно разрушаване.
Yes, you make everything zero.
Правиш всичко нула.
No more thoughts.
Без мисли.
No more feelings.
Без чувства.
No more desires.
Без желания.
And that's the mental. And from that depends everything else. So you go to really no existence. And if you don't exist, you don't feel pain. Problem solved. So if the comparison is somebody who is diseased, he lies on the hospital bed, and every movement is painful. So what is the solution? Don't move. If you don't move, you don't feel pain. Now we understand that's not really the solution. The real solution is you get healthy and become active. So that's our proposal. We agree material existence is suffering. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. That's not a secret. It's not even a high level realization. Many people understand that this is really suffering. Well, we try to forget it and just enjoy as much as we can. That's our solution. Well, that's the materialistic. We have three. We have the Buddhists and the impersonalists. Don't forget the materialists. What is their philosophy? They say this is the only life. That's their solution to the problem of this reincarnation. They just ignore it. It doesn't exist. Everything is just matter. And because this personality is only some, pattern. But now while I am here, I don't know why. It's not very pleasant many times. But there is pleasure also. So let's just have as much pleasure as possible and reduce the pain as much as possible. That's my philosophy. Isn't it? That's the materialistic philosophy. Yes. And it will work. Depends. If you are ethical and have some good karma, you can have a little more pleasure and reduce your pain. But it's not really the solution, because we know life will go on. You think everything will be finished when you die. Not true. The show will go on. How? In what circumstance? That's the question. And that Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita also. That will depend on your consciousness. Therefore we try to develop Krishna consciousness. Yes. If you have Krishna consciousness, then the future is with Krishna. If you have dog consciousness because you like a little doggy, that's where you're going to go. It's a little drastic, but that's our choice. It's also wherever we want, finally the desire will be fulfilled. Some people like surfing. Surfing. Here haven't seen surfers. They don't have enough waves. In other places like Portugal or Hawaii, they all day long they're in the water surfing. So, well, you're more or less expressing, I really like to do that. So material nature will say, well, I mean, you got the wrong body. I can give you the body of a dolphin next life. Much easier. You can do all 24 hours. No diaphragm suit, So you want to fly. Take the body of a bird. There's 8,400,000 choices. Why so much variety? Where is it coming from? Because we have so many different desires. We want to enjoy the material world. So then when we come to that conclusion that there's a lot of suffering, the solution is not to extinguish your existence. No, the solution is to put it on a higher spiritual level and live forever. So that's our proposal. Anything else? So, you have no. It looked like. Anyway, so we can stop here. Thank you for your attention.